The last wild card question. This is to Chairman Thomas Scott. You might grow weary of me asking this question, but we're going to do it anyway. All right. As some of our members of the audience might recall, in the fall of 2009, you compassionately spoke out against discrimination and voting to add gender identity to a human rights ordinance. But you also said at that time that you had previously never voted for any gay rights issues. In 2005, you and 4 other commissioners voted 5-1 to place a ban on gay pride as one of the storms called Little G, Little P. Now, the only person who voted against it at the time, Kathy Castor, said at the time, "I think it's inappropriate for government to promote discrimination." Looking back on that vote now, Chairman Scott, do you regret that vote?
Again, I do not condone discrimination in any form. I think that we should not condone it, and I as mayor, would not condone it. I would say that that vote in 2005 had nothing to do with discrimination. I will tell you that the vote in 2009 had a lot to do with discrimination. I voiced that. I will continue to voice that I will stand and oppose any discrimination, whether it is racial discrimination, whether it is sexual or gay, lesbian issues. I will oppose any kind of discrimination and support. You see, it's important for the mayor of the city to represent everybody, and I intend to do that.
Okay, thanks very much. Let's go to let's ask a question about Cuba now. We'll start with Dick Greco. We've heard you talk about various candidates have talked about it. Yesterday, Bob Buckhorn said he wouldn't concentrate on it. Just very quickly, some people say, would you go to Cuba? I know you went yourself, sir, back in 2002, I believe it was. Would you go again to try to establish business relationship there?
I'd do anything I could do to help those people become democratic. That's why I went then. I spent 5 hours and 45 minutes with Castro. I speak Spanish. To see 11.6 million people that in nearly 60 years, half of them don't know anything else. They don't have enough food, everything. They look the same as the ones here. It's pathetic. I would do anything to help them. I don't think our government has wanted to engage in any kind of dialogue with them, which is too bad. I can't go down there and say, I want trade. Mm-hmm. That's not as important as making them understand what we're about and hopefully bring them into the fold one day.
Thomas Scott.
Well, I said it from day one. You know that you were there. I stressed the importance that we're talking about bringing jobs to Tampa. And so therefore, we are, I've been pointing out all along that under the U.S. government, there are things that you're permitted to do right now. You can go to Cuba now. You can trade now under the federal guidelines and law. We are an agricultural state, and therefore we can go. Alabama is doing it. Jacksonville is doing it. New Orleans is doing it. Houston is doing it. Nebraska. So there's no reason why Tampa, which is closer, should not be doing trade, going to Cuba, establishing trade with Cuba, and creating jobs for this community.
Thank you. Ed Taranche.
I agree with Tom. For starters, he started. I concur with him and appreciate his leadership on it. I try to take it one step forward. I'm a student of history, and some of the candidates say, well, we can't get involved in foreign policy. Ladies and gentlemen, free trade typically means freedom. When a middle class rises up and gets prosperous, dictatorships usually fall. Freedom follows. In my opinion, the best way to move forward with freedom in Cuba is free trade.
Bob Buckhorn.
Mitch, we need to do everything to get ready for the fall of Castro and democracy taking hold in Cuba. But as mayor, first of all, you don't set foreign policy. In spite of what you may hear, you don't set foreign policy. Second of all, in terms of having limited political capital and limited time in office, I would rather spend my time dealing with more mature economies with which we already have trading relationships. If you look at the half moon from Mexico all the way down to Venezuela, we already have existing relationships. We need to grow them. We need to further them. They have capital to pay for our goods. We don't need to get in a great debate about trading with Castro right now.
Sorry. All right, Rose Rolita.
Okay, Reverend Scott is correct in some fashion about other places trading with them, but it's limited to food products, medication, poultry. I brought that up because somebody had that same complaint, a guy named Mike. I asked Mr. Wayne, why weren't we engaging in that? Well, we talked to some of the shippers, Savage and some of the others. They said the reason they don't engage in it because they don't have enough cargo requests, and it doesn't make good financial sense to take a ship over there that's not full enough. In terms of trade, of course we want trade. We're looking at the Panama Canal doing what it's going to do pretty soon, and trade with Asia and India. We need to be prepared when U.S. law allows us to do that.
Okay, thanks
Fully
very much.
supportive.
Thank you, Rosarlita. Okay, time is running away, but we want to get some questions from our audience. Joe Barty is out there, our associate editor, with a microphone in hand. If anybody wants to ask a question, please find Joe right now, and let's try to get this happening pretty quickly here. All right, here, before we, all right, let's get somebody here. And you can ask the question to the one candidate or to all the candidates, and we'll try to hold up to 30-second response.
Yeah, Ben Buckley here, North Hyde Park. I would like to ask all the candidates about this bad economic downturn that we're in right now, and how the housing stock in the city has been devalued to, you can't even build a home for what they're selling for. And how could we or you control this, or make sure this doesn't happen again, and what would you all do to
Thank you. Let's start with Ed Taranchik on the side.
One of my first priorities is houses to homes. I get it. I get it. I've seen it terribly, and everyone's afflicted by it. I'm going to retool the city down payment programs. We're going to use 203K FHA rehab foreclosure insurance and be in a position to take the houses that are foreclosed, make them, rehab them, and put them on the market for renters. Moving houses to homes is really important because you got to push that inventory through the pipeline as fast as you can to get values back.
Thank you,
Ed. It's all oriented to the buyer making those decisions.
Councilman Scott.
Yeah, I appointed a task force when I was on the county commission, deal with affordable housing to address a lot of the issues that have just been raised. As the mayor, I will continue to work with our housing department and those funds that are coming in from the federal government, because there are federal restrictions, to work with them as to what we can do to continue to make housing available and affordable for our citizens. So I think it's very important that we look at the regulations in terms of building, and those that present impediments, we need to repeal those, move those, adjust them or whatever, so that people can build a home without it being too expensive.
Thank you. Dick Recco.
We have a tremendous inventory of housing and so forth, and that's what's causing the problem. Until that normalizes, we're going to have a hard time. Two industries that have had the hardest of times are the Tampa Bay Builders Association, 3 counties, and the Board of Realtors, 5,700 strong. Both have endorsed me. They had interviewed all of us. They made that decision for a reason. I've been in that business. I've been here before. Each and every time I've been mayor, we have flourished in some way, in many ways. And I appreciate that. It's going to be very difficult sledding in the next 2 or 3 years. We might as well be truthful with one
Thanks,
another.
Mr. Greco. Rosarlita.
Mitch, we have to look at a lot of ways to incentivize our homeowners. Obviously, there are some neighborhood stabilization or neighborhood stability programs from the federal government. We need to continue looking at that to help with foreclosure homes. In addition to that, again, I seem to keep saying the same thing, partnerships. In some areas, I think perhaps maybe we ought to look at working on this problem with Hillsborough County.
Okay, and Bob Buckhorn.
Mitch, I started my career in public service under Sandy Friedman, and during those times we created what was called the Challenge Fund. Many of you will remember, we were the envy of the nation. We were the place that President Clinton and Vice President Gore would come down here to see how we were doing things. We've got to get back to those days. We need to create a program, a partnership with our lending partners, where they would write down portions of the loan, where the city would be in a position to backstop the loan with some capital. The challenge for most first-time home buyers is the inability to produce the capital to put the down payment down. We can backstop that. There are all kinds of ways to re-energize the housing market.
Thank you, Mr. Buckhorn. Another question you got, Joe?
Yeah, Mike McCarthy, Tampa resident and USF student. I'm also a bicyclist and I'm a walker. And as you probably know, Tampa is one of the most dangerous cities in the States to ride a bicycle or even to walk. What are you candidates going to do to make it safe to be a bicyclist, to make it safe to be a walker in our city?
Tom Scott, let's begin with you.
Again, the Metropolitan Planning Organization have a plan in place, which we already voted upon, really, to address the issue of bicycling within our city, streetscapes and bicycle trails and stripes for the bicycle, and also more public education to the bikers, public education to the drivers, so that the drivers can respect the bikers as well. We need to continue to do that. The city is doing that now. I have that moving forth on a lot of the places in the city where they have the markings or the striping on.
Thank you, Chairman Scott. Again, the question about bicycle safety and pedestrian safety, Mayor Greco.
It's certainly a question that comes up all the time, more so than I ever thought. I've been looking at some of the railroad right-of-ways that go through South Tampa and so forth and make it a lot easier to do it there. In New Tampa, for instance, we have a lot of right-of-ways where you could easily do some of the things that have already been done. I live on Bayshore. I wouldn't ride on that bike path next to the sidewalk for anything in the world. No matter how much education you give people, it's dangerous. And you see very few people doing it. So they're on the sidewalk with a bicycle with people walking. We must work on that. There's no question about it. There's a lot of people that ride. It's a great place to do it. We're working on a number of things that perhaps get that done.
Rose Ferlita.
Thank you. As you know, I supported the transportation ballot referendum, didn't pass, and I'm saying let's look at it again. When I talk about corrections or renewing that program, that's one of the things that should be in there. Absolutely. Maybe some people don't look at it as transportation, but I do. Going forward, we can implement that in a program called Complete Streets, so that you have some safety as a bicyclist. But, you know, it comes down to mutual respect and courtesy. Everybody has the rights on the road, the vehicles, the pedestrians, the bicyclists. And that's what we have to do, incorporate that in our Complete Streets program. So we will take care of that as we go forward. And Reverend Scott is correct.
Thank you, Rose.
Restripe some of the ones that are already there.
Bob Buckhorn.
Mike, I think all of us are saying, in essence, the same thing. I mean, we realize it's a problem. Alan Snell has been a wonderful advocate on behalf of the bicyclists. To me, it's as much an economic development issue as it is a livability issue. If we're going to attract the best and the brightest in this country, and if you read Richard Florida and you talk about the rise of the creative class, intellectual capital is mobile. They want to come to a place where there's a great quality of life. Bicycling and walking and that type of environment, that wholesome environment, is part of that quality of life. We need to deal with this to give mobility options that are other than just rail, cars, buses. Bikes are a big part of it. City needs to partner with the bicycling community to help it happen.
And Ed Taranchik.
High-speed rail opens in 2015. I propose buying the CSX tracks as part of a referendum, putting regional hybrid rail on it, developing rails and trails together, having a great bus connecting system to it, and connecting to that is a great network of sidewalks and bikeways. It's a matter of creating a mobility system. The cool thing about rails and trails is that you then have a totally dedicated, protected corridor for bicyclists to get from one part of the town to another. I used to ride my bike to work, and I understand how difficult it is and how dangerous it is.
Okay.